Welcome to Karen's place, the space she uses to innovate. She'll make sure you're left thinking, I could do the same thing. Karen says, just do it. There ain't nothing to it. Just do it.
All right, welcome back. We are ready for week 11's deep dive. And this week we are looking into the the creative journal of Karen Eastland. This is for the week of Monday, March 8th to Friday, March 12th, 2025. Now, what's super interesting about this particular week in Karen's life, she's got a lot going on.
She does.
Creatively.
Yeah, she's juggling a lot. We see her revising her Josephine Marlin novel, which we're all fans of. And she's also releasing new music. And this is both for Wrecked and Ready, her heavy metal band.
That's right.
And her ethereal project, Songs for the Goddess. But on top of all that, she's also experimenting with AI, which is becoming increasingly relevant, I think, to all kinds of creative processes.
Absolutely. It's everywhere. And so our mission this week is really to dig into how she managed to kind of keep all these plates spinning at once, but then also really look closely at what her experience is using AI in her creative process, what that can teach us about this relationship between human creativity and, these very sophisticated new tools that are emerging.
It's a fascinating glimpse into the future of art making, really.
Yeah. So let's start with the novel revision. Karen started the week off with a pretty huge task, undertaking a significant rewrite of the first book in her Josephine Marlin series. So we're talking A Friend in Need. And the big change that she made, and it's a change that she mentions in her journal as having a really big impact, was a shift in the narrative perspective.
Right. She decided to move away from that very immediate first-person perspective where you're really inside Josephine's head to a third-person limited point of view. And in her own words, this change completely reshaped the tone and the depth of the story, which is a pretty significant statement.
Yeah. I mean, it makes you wonder what led her to make such a fundamental change in the way the story is being told,
Well, we know she really appreciated that intimacy and immediacy that comes with first person. You're right there experiencing everything along with Josephine, but it seems that she felt that third person limited would give her a broader scope, a wider lens for the narrative, letting her show more of the world around Josephine and potentially build a different kind of suspense. And it's interesting because she still maintains that close emotional connection to Josephine's character. It's not like she's completely detached.
Right. So it's like she's getting the best of both worlds in a way. She can expand the story's world while still keeping us deeply invested in Josephine's experience. Now, this is where things get really interesting, especially in light of our focus on AI this week. Karen's journal entries describe how she decided to experiment with ChatGPT's AI, which she's named Saul,
Right.
specifically to see how it would handle this point of view transformation. So she gave Saul a specific task: convert 3 paragraphs from the original first person to this new third person limited perspective. I mean, it's pretty fascinating that she's actively using AI in this way,
It is. It speaks to a real willingness to explore the potential of these tools within her creative process. She's not just observing, she's actively testing the boundaries of what AI can do, and she's doing it within the very specific context of her own work.
And the results, well, they're kind of what you might expect, but they're still really revealing. Saul would make the basic changes, switching pronouns and adjusting the sentences so they're grammatically correct in the third person. But when it came to really capturing the spirit of Karen's rewritten sections, matching her style and voice, well, Saul just couldn't quite get there. It struggled, especially with the dark humor and the nuances of the urban fantasy setting that are such a big part of the Josephine Marlin books.
It highlights the fact that while AI can be great at manipulating language in a technical sense, it really struggles with those more subtle aspects of writing, like humor, especially dark humor, which is so dependent on tone and implication. And then, of course, there's the whole world-building aspect of urban fantasy, which involves creating a very specific atmosphere and set of rules. Those things seem to be beyond AI's capabilities, at least for now.
And here's the thing. Karen didn't just give Saul a basic prompt and let it go.
Yeah.
In her journal, she details a very, very specific set of instructions. I mean, she tells Saul to preserve the tone, to leave the dialogue exactly as it is, to use Australian English consistently, and even to format thoughts, telepathy, and regular conversation different ways. It's a level of detail that really shows how meticulously she's approaching this experiment.
It almost seems like she's setting a challenge for Soul, really pushing the AI to see if it can grasp the complexity of her artistic choices. It's not just about converting text, it's about understanding her intentions as an author.
And the fact that Saul struggled even with such detailed instructions really shows the gap that still exists between AI's ability to process language and the more intuitive human side of creative writing. That ability to infuse a story with feeling and personality. So despite Saul's attempts, Karen ended up spending 2 whole days rewriting those sections herself, making sure the novel kept its essential elements even with the change in perspective. The big takeaway here is that human touch is still absolutely vital. It's not just about having a tool that can do the work for you, it's about shaping and refining that work so it truly reflects your artistic vision.
I think that's a key insight, and it ties back to the bigger picture. AI can be incredibly useful, but right now it's more like a very sophisticated assistant than a replacement for the human artist. The core decisions, the creative essence of the work, that's still very much in our hands.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so moving on, midweek brought a pretty dramatic shift in Karen's creative focus. She released 2 new tracks from Recht & Reddy's upcoming album Valhalla, and this album is, as you might guess, heavily inspired by Norse mythology. Talk about a change of pace from revising a novel.
It is. You see this incredible creative flexibility. On the one hand, she's deep in the solitary world of writing, crafting this intricate narrative. And then on the other hand, she's channeling that energy into heavy metal, a genre that's all about power and outward expression.
Totally. So the first track, which dropped on Wednesday, March 10th, is called Hall of the Slain. And it's a full-on heavy metal ode to Viking warriors and their, let's say, eternal reward in Odin's Hall. And we've got some lyrics here, and they really paint a vivid picture. Lines like, march through the gates, the war has been won, feasting with kings, our fate just begun. I mean, it's just classic heavy metal imagery.
It's powerful stuff, and what's really interesting is how Karen takes these ancient mythological themes and transforms them into the language of heavy metal. The descriptions we have of the music, talking about thunderous drums, heavy guitar riffs, and this sense of epic storytelling, you can almost hear the track just from reading those words. It speaks to a deep understanding of how to use music to create a specific atmosphere and tell a story.
Yeah. And then the next day, Thursday, March 11th, she released Odin's Wisdom. And this track delves into, well, a different side of Norse mythology, focusing on the sacrifices Odin made in his quest for knowledge. Things like hanging from Yggdrasil, the world tree, for 9 days and giving up his eye in exchange for wisdom. It's a little more introspective, a little darker maybe than Hall of the Slain.
It shows a deeper engagement with the mythology, I think. It's not just about the surface-level imagery of Vikings and battles. She's exploring the deeper meaning, the cost of wisdom, the pain that often comes with knowledge. And the lyrics reflect that. We have lines like, hung from the tree for 9 days bound, wisdom through pain, the runes were found. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah. And the sources describe the production of Odin's Wisdom as being really atmospheric, which suggests a different sonic landscape compared to the more in-your-face style of Hall of the Slain.
Yeah.
So even within the genre of heavy metal, she's showing a lot of versatility, using sound and music to create different moods and enhance storytelling.
Absolutely. It's a great example of how an artist can take inspiration from mythology and translate it into a specific musical genre, capturing both the grand scale and the more subtle nuances of the stories. It makes you wonder how deeply she immersed herself in Norse mythology to create these tracks.
For sure. All right, so then on Friday, March 12th, Karen took another sharp turn, musically speaking. She released The Dance of the Cloudwalker from her ethereal album, Songs for the Goddess. And this is a world away from the intensity of Recht & Reddy.
It really is. It shows the breadth of her musical interests and talents. This track draws inspiration from mythology, yes, but it also incorporates spirituality and nature, creating a very peaceful, almost meditative listening experience. It's a stark contrast to the high energy of her heavy metal work, highlighting her ability to evoke such a wide range of emotions through her music.
Yeah, and the lyrics really reflect that shift in mood. We have lines like, upon the peaks where the mist takes flight, she sways to the rhythm of the night. It's so evocative, so tranquil, you can practically feel the mist and hear the wind just from those words.
Now, this is where our discussion of AI comes back into play, because the sources specifically mention that The Dance of the Cloudwalker was produced using AI-assisted music creation tools. It's a significant detail, especially in light of her experiments with AI and her novel writing.
It is, and this is a really important point. Even though she used AI tools in the production of this track, Karen is very clear in stating that the lyrics, The overall vision for the song and the thematic elements all came from her. She's still the driving creative force behind the music.
Exactly. It reinforces this idea of AI as a tool, something that can enhance or augment certain aspects of the creative process, but not something that replaces the human artist. In this case, the AI might have helped with things like arrangement or sound design, but the heart of the song, the emotional core, that's all Karen.
Yeah. So it seems like she's being very intentional in how she uses AI. She's not just throwing it at everything. She's recognizing its strengths, maybe in areas like music production, while also understanding its limitations, particularly when it comes to things like narrative voice and emotional depth in writing. It's a very deliberate, targeted approach.
And this brings us to her overall reflections on AI, which she shares in her journal throughout the week. She's clearly giving this a lot of thought, considering its role in her creative life, both in writing and music.
Right. And one thing that really stands out is her insistence that AI, at least as it exists today, is ultimately a tool. It can be incredibly powerful, yes, but it's still a tool to be used by humans, not a replacement for human creativity. It can offer new possibilities, new ways of working, but it doesn't have that spark, that essential human element that drives true art.
And despite seeing its potential, especially in tasks like transforming text and refining audio, she maintains that it can't replicate the unique voice of an author or the emotional depth that makes a story or a piece of music truly resonate with people. It's a really insightful perspective, especially given the increasing prevalence of AI in all aspects of our lives, including the arts.
And her experiences this week seem to have really solidified that view for her. This idea that the soul of creativity remains firmly in human hands. It's a powerful statement. It's a reassuring one in a way.
It is, and it's not about rejecting technology. It's about finding a balance, a way to integrate these new tools while ensuring that the human element, the personal artistry, remains at the forefront. That seems to be the approach Karen is taking, and it's a valuable one for all of us to consider.
So looking back at this week in Karen's creative journal, what do you think is the biggest takeaway for our listeners? It's been a whirlwind tour of her creative process, from the meticulous work of novel revision to the raw power of heavy metal and the serenity of her ethereal music. And all of this is interwoven with her exploration of AI and its place in her art.
I think what strikes me most is the sheer range and depth of Karen's creative energy. She's moving between these very different artistic disciplines, but they all inform and enrich each other. And her willingness to experiment with new tools like AI while also staying true to her core artistic vision, that's a really inspiring example for any artist, really for anyone who wants to create.
And her journey with AI this week, as we've discussed, offers a really important reminder. Technology can be an incredible asset. It can open up new possibilities, but ultimately, the heart of creation, the vision, the voice, the emotion, that all comes from the human artist. That's something worth remembering as we move forward into a future where AI will undoubtedly play an ever-increasing role in our lives.
I think so too. And this week's journal leaves us with a question that's worth pondering. As AI continues to evolve at this incredible pace, how will artists like Karen continue to define and protect those uniquely human qualities that make art so powerful, so meaningful, so essential to our experience of the world? It's a question that all of us, as consumers and creators, need to be thinking about as we navigate the evolving landscape of art and technology.
It's a question that will likely stay with us for quite some time.
Thanks for stopping